Hi, over the next couple of slides, I'm going to share with you my experience through my internship. First, how did I find my internship? So, at first, I wasn't sure like what route I was going to really take because I'm an online student and I live in Texas. So, there's not as many options as there are like in Utah area and Provo and like Idaho. So, it's hard. And so I was thinking, well, maybe I could use my job. And so I had reached out to my principal and I was talking to her about it. And she didn't seem to have a problem with it. So then I reached out to BYU and they agreed. And um, in their agreement, we decided that um, it would probably be best to go with that route. And I am a paraprofessional and I work with behavior students who sometimes need help with social skills or um, those help them with like socializing with others, how to deal with different scenarios and situations that they may have hard time dealing with, to help them control their anger and how we can approach things appropriately and different things like that. And so, with that being said, it allowed me to work with students and parents kind of in a way. We aren't, as paraprofessionals, we aren't supposed to have any contact with the parents, but I provide the data for the behavior students that I work with, for the teacher that I work under to report back to the parent. So, in some aspect, I kind of do work with the parent, just not physically. It's more of through the paperwork side of it because I do all the paperwork. And so that has helped, and that really allowed me to be able to show how my job can work as my internship. What were my responsibilities? So my responsibilities are to I push into classes, like I go and sit in a class for 10, 15 minutes, sometimes longer, depending on the behavior of my student that is in that class. Sometimes there's one in in a class, sometimes there's four in a class. You never know. And so I'll go in there and I will enter quietly, go sit in the back of the room, and I have like a notepad and I document everything I see, the positive, the good, the bad, the ugly. That way we can have like all that documentation on them. And we don't want to just document the bad because we don't, whenever we go to have their ARD or their behavior RTI meeting, we don't want to just have negative things because they're not bad kids. They just need redirection and they need structure. And that's what we're here for. And so we have the anchor program, and that's where we like support them with emotional support and different things like that. So on top of pushing into classrooms, we did 10-minute social skills lessons with them. They normally last about 10 15 minutes, sometimes longer, just depending on the student, because some students did not like to do them because they felt it was too babyish or they felt they were too cool for it. And so sometimes we have to like kind of talk them back down and get them back to where they need to be. So I do paperwork and enter their data for the day. I do their points. We have a point system where they can earn points from each teacher for having good behavior, doing their work, being respectful, and they can use those points to buy out of our little prize closet. And we have like different prizes and snacks that they like and whatnot. And so they really like that at the end of the week when we do that. What were the benefits of the site? The benefit for me was that you get to, like you get to work with children and it allows you to have that upfront raw interaction with them in a educational setting without them putting on a front in front of their parent or something like that. Because a lot of students will act totally different in front of their parent than they do at school. So at school, we see the real raw, like who they are outside of their home, away from their home, how they act, what they're lacking, what they're doing great in, and different things like that. Not that you don't necessarily see that within a home, but you see a lot of that outside of the home in the classroom and how they're interacting with other students and their peers and different things like that. So I found that all very beneficial because that goes kind of hand in hand with some of the classes that I've taken over this semester. How I benefited personally. I personally benefited from this because it allowed me to still work and earn money to pay for my bills and pay for everything that I need to pay for while still getting my internship in because that was kind of a gray area for a while and I was worried about that because I didn't know how that was going to work, what was going to work. So if you work like in a school setting, like this might be something that you could do and still earn money. Like you could be a paraprofessional and do your internship while still earning money. And like that is completely doable. So being able to do that was pretty great for me because there's no way that I wouldn't have been able to work and do it just because it's just me and I live alone. So I have to be able to pay my bills. So that really worked out. And I also really love working with children. And this really gives me the opportunity to get to know them for who they are, to learn them, to learn their behaviors, the good and the bad, to figure out what works best for them, to really connect with them. And I just really love that because it allows me to become so much further and gain that trust with them because I do want to be a teacher. And that's my goal for next school year is to be teaching. And so I've had all these different experiences inside the classroom before ever becoming a teacher, and I will forever be grateful and blessed for that. Important connections. So important connections I made between like my coursework and being out in the internship field was you really see like my child development class and some of my education classes that I took, you really see those kind of connect together and you're like, oh wow, like this student is acting the way he's acting because he has a lack of parental guidance. He has lack of um, help in his home. He basically has to raise himself, different reasons. And so you see all these things and it makes sense. But then you see these other kids who are doing great and they're thriving and they have these good home lives. But then there's some kids who have good home lives and they still aren't thriving. And that could be, okay, maybe they're adopted. And when they were born, they were addicted to drugs or alcohol. And that has affected them mentally. So that affects their behavior, that affects their academics, that affects their social skills, like that totally affects them. So it's different to see the different important connections you can see with like your psychology classes that you take and your different parenting classes and child development classes, and it really kind of all falls into line. Recommendations for this kind of internship: if you plan on going into the teaching field or the education field, I highly recommend this. It allows you to work and be in the classroom for becoming a teacher, which I have worked in my district for 3.5 years now. Absolutely loved it. Still love it and can't wait to move forward and become a teacher. So if you're going into education, I think it's absolutely worth it. Reach out to a school near you, your principal if you already work at a school, or hire admin if need be, and it could really work out in your favor. What students would benefit from this internship? Like I said, if you're wanting to go into any kind of like education, or maybe if you're wanting to go into counseling, you can go to school counseling. Most schools have school counselors. I know there's a couple that have like chaplains instead, but most schools do have school counselors, and so you could even go that route with it in the field work area, social work. So yeah, and that is all for my presentation tonight. Thanks, guys.